Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for All About Android is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at Gazelle.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of All About Android, episode 130, recorded on Tuesday, October 8th, 2013. We are your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Gina Trapani.
Hello, Gina. How are you doing this fine evening?
Wonderful. Great to be back this week.
It's good to have you back. We are sans Ron today. We are without Ron. He's doing comic-y stuff in New York. But we are stoked to bring back John Fingus, associate editor of Engadget at Engadget.com, of course. John, how you been?
I'm doing nicely, thanks. Actually, it's been a pretty crazy past few weeks, actually, just because there's so many devices coming out. So just lots of stuff to keep track of.
Yeah, no kidding. It's kind of like an avalanche. It's just that time of year. We're talking in the pre-show. This is just the time of year where suddenly you get punched in the face every single day with some new rumor or some actual gadget. I feel like every day I open up my newsreader and scan through and I'm just like, oh, wow, okay, this next show is going to be huge because there's just so much to put into the dock. So
got to get it out before the holidays, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously we have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. On the hardware side, we're also going to be discussing the overblown, some would say, threat of malware on Android, more developer analytics tools, trends. I think it's kind of interesting. There's some trends that are really coming out, things like fingerprint scanners, curved screens, which I feel like we're there again. We've seen that before, and much more. But before we get into the news, I broke it out this time. Basically the numbers of Android installs were released, and at this point, Jelly Bean closes in on 48.6% from 45.1% last month, and Gingerbread's still holding strong, 28.5%. Ice Cream Sandwich, 20.6%. I don't know. I decided to do it before the news because I feel like we talk about it every month, and there's only so much you could say about it. But anyway, any surprises, any comments on the percentages at this point?
Well, it's not totally surprising. One of the things I'd note, of course, is that Google's kind of lumping in every version of Jelly Bean in that one category. Like if you actually go to the developer page and break it down, you notice that most of that 48% is actually 4.1. So there's still a bit of lag going on, but it's not as huge as it was for, like, say, previous versions of Android, because 4.1 to 4.3 are relatively close to each other. So.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can see that they're sort of extending Jelly Bean's name and just doing these minor releases. It's almost so that they can sort of combat the fragmentation story, right? I mean, they're doing great. I mean, they're going to blow past 50%, right? So like by January, or say like the end of January's report, after everyone's gotten their new devices at the holidays, like we were just talking about, it's going to be way past 50% at that point. And I think that this is a good way for Google to sort of combat the fragmentation discussion, particularly before KitKat drops.
Yeah, that's kind of the important part right now, particularly before KitKat, when all of this kind of gets thrown to the water and suddenly we have a fourth kind of version in there floating in there for people to criticize that it's so low, adoption's so low. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it's smart for them to kind of take those small incremental updates, lump it into the same category, and not feel like they have to roll out this big mega update every 6 months or every year even, as far as that's concerned. So cool stuff. All right, I guess that could have gone in news, but let's roll the news drop as well. Do it. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting story here, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. Google's Android security chief, Adrian Ludwig, spoke at the Virus Bulletin conference in Berlin a few days ago. last week actually, and broke Google's silence on the topic of malware on Android. I feel like we hear all the time about, oh, this insecurity of Android, this is, it could potentially harm millions and millions of Android devices. Google's been pretty mum on that topic because they didn't really have the data or weren't willing to release the data to back up its claims of security. Ludwig offered statistics direct from Google stating that less than 0.001% of surveyed app installations actually resulted in harmful outcomes, citing Google's multiple layers of protection that malware actually has to pass through in order to get to that kind of payload zone. In fact, some of the biggest malware stories to hit over the past few years actually only affected 1 in a million app installs, which is really not that bad, meaning the effect has been completely overblown thanks to the lack of actual data from Google to kind of give that extra perspective in a lot of those stories. Going forward, Google is going to share its data with security researchers, or so they say, so a more accurate picture can be painted. And this, by the way, is all thanks to Verify apps, which was actually introduced in 4.2. It's been moved into Play services. And that right there is the really important part, because that means that 95% of all devices are reporting to these statistics. It's quite a large pool of Android devices that are considered in here. So it's kind of an interesting other side to what we continue to hear, and I feel like we'll continue to hear, even though this, this news is here, is that maybe Android, security isn't nearly as bad as it may seem. You have to figure a lot of the times these stories come out that say that it is, but you have to really look at who's putting that story out there. It's a security firm. It's a company that could really, has kind of an agenda as far as that's concerned. Maybe they offer software to combat viruses or malware. I don't know. What do you guys think of this? Is this good news for Android?
It's very nice to actually have that kind of transparency from Google and say exactly, okay, well, here's how little actual malware is getting through.
Right.
I mean, in a sense, like they're not touching on certain things. Like, yes, like technically, say iOS might be a bit more secure because you can't allow like third-party app stores, and they have various type monitors like that. But the practical reality of Android is that because Google does a lot of screening, and because most people stay in Google Play, and because just human nature, like the actual likelihood that your Android phone will get malware is very, very small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting you bring up iOS. Just as a total aside, I saw this right before the show started. Eric Schmidt, where was he? He's at the Gartner Symposium in Orlando, Florida. During a Q&A, basically made the comment, Android is more secure than Apple's iOS. I don't know how he knows that for sure, but boom goes the dynamite, says Eric Schmidt.
I remember hearing that apparently from people on Twitter, that apparently the moment after he said that, like there was some chuckling in the crowd, because that was a surprisingly blanket statement. Not necessarily false. But that's one of those things where, like, okay, you could probably spend the next half hour unpacking that statement. Well, what exactly do you mean by that?
Absolutely.
So it's like, kind of a loaded thing to say at a conference, especially when probably some of the people there are not using Android devices, and they probably have a different opinion.
Totally. I'm sure there were some chuckles. Yeah.
As for them, as for Google finally sharing this data, my first reaction is, it's about time. I mean, I feel like Android gets killed on two fronts. Like from a PR perspective, they get killed on the fragmentation front, which we just talked about, and they get killed on the security front. And their silence after all these stories, mostly from security firms or companies that are hawking security software, come out. It damages Android, and for there to be no response for this long, no response kind of makes it seem like, well, then this must be true, right? I mean, it sounds like Google was waiting to have that data in order to respond, right? Like, which I'm glad they have hard data, and it's clear that the Play services, they had to get Verify apps out into Play services to all Android devices, and like going forward, as we see more Android forks like Fire OS and MIUI or whatever, the Ouya OS or whatever it is, I think that security and like Google's layer, the Play services and all the things that come with it, including the security layer in the Play Store, are actually going to be one of the things that differentiate Google Android from other Androids. So I think this is going to become even more important going forward. But yeah, about time. Glad to hear that they're getting data from old devices as well for Play services, and not just the new Jelly Bean devices. And yeah, happy to see. I hope that they can, respond with real-time data when these stories come out about Android malware more quickly on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and my fear is, even though we know this, it's still not going to be enough to battle the kind of knee-jerk reaction that some that some publications and reporters have, because Android and malware is always seems to be this sexy story that people want to pass along. I'll be curious to see if this has an impact on that, or if this is at least something to kind of temper against that going forward.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So Google has been launching lots of goodies for developers, which makes me very happy because I get to see this in action with my app. Google just released improved analytics for developers to track users, how users are finding their apps, basically. So up until now, you were able to drop Google Analytics code into your Android app to get some information about how long users were using your app and that kind of thing. I never did it because I didn't think the data that you get back or the information that you get back was interesting enough, but that just changed today. Google is actually letting developers link their Google Analytics account and their Play Store developer console account so that developers can now see where are people coming from, how are they finding my app? Was it a big blog post? Was it, something on Hacker News? Was it just a Play Store promotion? You can just, was it through, Google search? So you get the kind of, basically the kind of engagement data that you get for any web page, but you get it for your Play Store page, which is really, really cool. And all you have to do is, if you're a developer, is just link those two accounts, your analytics and your Google Play console, and you start getting that data right away. And the developer console is also getting an upgrade that is going to show you things about how often your users use your app, how long they're in it, and what they're doing inside the app as well. So it's going to show a lot more of the data that you get just from having that Google Analytics code inside your app. So really cool. Not something that's going to directly affect users, only in that developers will have a much better idea about what's working really well in their app and what isn't, right? So they'll hopefully the end goal is that they'll iterate their app to become just better and better over time. And some new stuff in Google Play Games as well, kind of along the same lines. Developers get better statistics, so what percentage of users have unlocked a certain achievement, game services alerts if you're approaching your quota, and double capacity for cloud save. So each user has more storage to save games as they play. So some really, really nice upgrades here for developers that I hope will translate into better Android apps for users.
Yeah, more incentive for developers to actually rope their games through the service. I saw a list earlier. I wish I would have linked to it, but it's not very many games that are really tapping into the power of this service as of yet. I'm really hoping that we start to see more and more of that, particularly cloud saving. I feel like we don't really see that much yet, but it's a pretty darn cool feature. So it'll be nice once more developers feel the push to actually include that into their games.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. I think it's because it's new, and I think it's maybe because some developers are just porting their games from iOS, and that the game services kind of offers a different thing. Once you start to hook into Play services, it kind of prevents you from installing on other platforms. I don't know if that would be that much of a
that's a good point. Cross-platform, yeah,
but I don't think that would decentivize too much because something like the Ouya, for example, hasn't gone so crazy big that would be a big deal. I think it's just new, and I think that there's rapid development though going on for games on Android right now. And this Android developers blog says that 3 out of every 4 Android users are playing games right now. So I think it's just a growing thing, and hopefully we'll see more of it going forward.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, both of you were not on last week, but Gina, you were out last week. We had an interesting discussion about benchmarks. We actually have a voicemail from Sam regarding the discussion that we had on benchmarking tricks.
Hi, this is Sam from Cleveland, calling regarding AA 129, specifically around the topic of Samsung phones tricking the benchmark numbers. As an Android user, I don't feel like I really care that they was trying to trick the numbers, because to me, the benchmarks always show what peak performance would be like. To me, it would be akin to saying a car can go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. What you're doing is you're going for peak performance and gunning the pedal, or saying a car gets 33 miles per gallon at optimal conditions. So to me, it's not really dishonest. It's just showing what the phone can do, and it's not, providing false numbers. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks for the show. Take care. Bye.
I think that's a good way to kind of think about it, except that that's not necessarily the intended way for the benchmarking apps, right? They're meant to analyze. Well, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter to the benchmarking apps. Maybe for those apps, it is really just about what is peak performance. I just think that the manufacturers are having to kind of change things behind the scenes in a little bit of a sneaky way in order to achieve that. Though I completely understand where you're coming from on that, as far as that's concerned. What do you guys think?
Well, in my case, it's like I think he kind of has a point, because I mean benchmarks, the conditions that you get in benchmarks are rarely going to actually show up in real life. But at the same time, it's the way that they're fudging the numbers that's a bit of a concern, because for example, the thing that Samsung was doing, for example, and I wouldn't be surprised if others were doing as well, is basically forcing the processor to run like a full clock speed, all cores all the time, which is like, even if you're in the middle of some really intensive game, like the processor is not going to do that. So this is more or less like what the processor can theoretically do, and more like what the processor could do if you absolutely didn't care about like longevity or battery life or anything like that. It's not something that the processor can actually normally sustain. So you wouldn't actually, you're not really seeing the potential of the chip. You're seeing it sort of like almost beyond its potential, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, it's interesting that you say, Samsung's doing, probably other people, because it turns out fudging those benchmarks is actually pretty widespread. It's not just Samsung. AnandTech had been tracking this data with many of the devices that they've reviewed since July, and they found, by and large, nearly every manufacturer is doing this, save for Motorola and for Apple. And also absent from that list are any Nexus devices, which makes sense. This kind of thing wouldn't be built into the AOSP. So it would make it to Nexus devices. So, Samsung isn't the only company doing this with their devices. It's kind of like steroids in the Olympics or something. You know what I mean? It's like, well, if everybody's doing it, then...
yeah, who isn't doing it?
Yeah, exactly. And Antutu, a popular benchmarking app recently released actually a new app called Benchmark X, and that actually camouflages itself from this kind of detection, allowing it to, they say, accurately test the devices it's run on. And Tutu, of course, didn't reveal how they're pulling this off, but suddenly we're in a little bit of an arms race when it comes to benchmarking apps now too, because they're like, well, if you're gonna find your way around our process, then we're gonna find a way around your way around our thing. So we'll see where this ends.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this kind of benchmark Cold War.
I know. It's totally a benchmark Cold War. That's a great way to put it. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this, Gina? Do you feel one way or another about benchmarking shenanigans?
I don't really have a strong opinion about it. I'm kind of with Sam. I'm kind of like, I mean, to me, I don't know. I'm kind of hippy dippy. Like, I want to know how it feels, kind of real world. And when I read reviews, I don't know. I read reviews and I like to see, what a phone was like with somebody kind of living with it in real world situations versus benchmarks. They don't matter to me too much, and it is kind of one of those things. It was like, fine, if they're gonna optimize or cheat, for the benchmark software, and everybody's doing it, then whatever. It doesn't matter anyway. What matters is how the phone performs, and you're gonna get a sense of that when you kind of read the reviews by your trusted gadget reviewers.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think at least, and I think I mentioned this last week, but the reviews that I really follow and read to a T and feel like I identify with are the ones that kind of compare the reviewer's kind of real world experience with it versus the data behind it, because that's really what it boils down to. How usable is it for you as a person on a daily basis? And if it's very usable, then that sounds like a great device. Yep. I guess one thing you don't get from that is how the longevity of that, though, because devices seem great when you first get them, and then a year later,
when they lose that new car
exactly.
smell.
The Nexus 7. Yeah, the Nexus 7 had that problem where it's like, oh, hey, it's great when you get it, but then like several months down the line, the thing like up until Android 4.3, the thing was just like bogging down, so it felt like a much slower tablet. So.
Absolutely. And I don't know what we do about that, but I guess we fixed the problem in the case of the Nexus 7. They really did fix it with that version. All right, let's take a break and thank our sponsor for today's episode. Perfect sponsor for this time of year, Gazelle. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Gazelle. Gazelle is awesome. What can we say? That they sponsor a lot of shows on the network, and that's just because it's a perfect fit for you, the technology lover. And this time of year in particular, there's so many devices hitting the market. They haven't hit yet. We're hearing about them. This is the perfect time. This is exactly the time that, this is where I'm at right now, where I'm like, okay, my Galaxy Nexus, it's seeing the end of life at this point for me. I'm ready to move on. Hey, there's all of these devices. What do I do with my old devices? Well, that's what Gazelle is here for. There are just a ton of devices on Gazelle, and they essentially allow you to go to gazelle.com. That's GAZELLE.com. And they have an easy way to find the item that you have. So, if I have a Galaxy Nexus, if you have an iPhone, iPad, pretty much they accept all sorts of devices. You go through there and you pick the device that you have. You tell them the condition of your device, and answer any questions they have. Does it come with power supply? Fair condition, excellent condition, and they check it when they receive it to make sure. And then they'll give you a price, and they'll say this is the price that when you send it in to us, if it checks out based on what you told us, we're going to give this to you. You get paid in cash. That payment is fast, within a few days of the item being received to them, and it's risk-free. Offers are actually good for 30 days. So your devices, your gadgets, they don't get more valuable over time. It's not like, a nice bottle of red wine or a great painting. They actually get less valuable over time. So you can go in right now and say, I have this device, lock in that quote, and then 30 days from now, when you've decided, yes, this is what I want to do, you're not getting the price from 30 days from now. You're getting the price that you were quoted initially. And often that can be more than what you get if you waited those 30 days. Gazelle is trustworthy. They wipe your data for free if you don't do it yourself. And they've actually paid $100 million to over 600,000 customers. And that's just because it's easy. It's a simple process and very, very cool. It's kind of fun to go on there and pretend, and see, well, if I had this, what would I get? And just see what they're paying out. See what kind of money you could be making on these devices that are basically sitting on your dresser or in your drawer, not being used. Free shipping. Most items actually qualify for a free box, and it's just a fast process with no listing hassles. So there's just a ton of devices there. I implore you to check it out. It's GAZELLE.com. What are your devices worth? Your iPhone, your Android, Samsung, HTC, whatever you have, take a minute, go to gazelle.com to find out for yourself. Do it now because your phone may be losing value the longer you wait. And we thank Gazelle for their support of All About Android. Sell your gadgets the fast and simple way. It's gazelle.com. Thank you. All right. Lots of hardware to talk about. Let's get right into it.
Lots of juicy Amazon rumors
I know. This is
and
interesting
speculation going on. So the biggest stuff, we got two rumored smartphones. The project supposedly codenamed Smith, and this is all coming from a Hacker News posting from a throwaway account, and then TechCrunch corroborated that posting with some rumors they heard earlier in the year and a couple of their sources and a couple other things that had been said earlier in the year. So this is all rumor and speculation, but this is what it is. Two smartphones. First one, high-end 3D device, and I'm doing air quotes because the screen itself isn't 3D, but the device has 4 cameras, one at each corner of the device that tracks eye and head motions in order to move the interface around to give the impression of 3D. This the code name for this product is Smith. And so that would be a total of 5 cameras, including the rear camera on the back of the device as well. That's the high-end deal, and that's supposed to be a hardware beast, and that's not supposed to come out this year. That's supposed to come out, I guess, early next year. Project B, which is kind of like a cheap smartphone that Amazon is supposedly working on, has basic software similar to Fire OS, which is the Android fork that's running on the Kindle Fire. And rumor has it Amazon wants to ship this year. So this has got to happen, in the next couple months if they want to get it out before the year and ship it for the holidays. So that's the kind of the value phone on that side. And these are all sort of top secret operations going on, and apparently Amazon is losing employees and sucking up employees from other hardware projects, and they're all locked up in a lab somewhere. Last bit of Amazon rumor and speculation: they have trademarked the name FireTube in Canada and the US. So the rumor is Amazon making a Chromecast type of TV product called FireTube? Kind of would make sense from the name. Terrible name.
Yeah, pretty bad name.
Pretty bad name, FireTube. It's like YouTube and the Kindle Fire, but all in an Amazon thinger that you plug into your TV. So there you go. They've trademarked that name in Canada and the US. So what do you guys think? Are you excited about 5-camera phone, a cheap Kindle OS or Fire OS device, or a FireTube? Any one of these get you excited?
The 5-camera thing, sorry. That sounds kind of awesome, but at the same time, like, how practical is that going to be exactly? Because I mean, obviously, you'd want some kind of content to justify that. Like if you're just trying to go for, like, say, an iOS 7 style parallax effect in the background, like, well, you don't need 4 cameras at the corners to do that. But yeah, if they could somehow do, like, really awesome games or something with those cameras, then that would be something interesting. Or, like, say, hands-free gestures or so on, like things that would take advantage of the fact that you've got 4 cameras in front of you that can, like, track what you're doing. That would be kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like with what you're talking about, John, with the 5 cameras and, like, what kind of games and everything, in order for that to happen, you need developers who are able to commit to developing for that particular phone, that one phone that has the 4 cameras. That, you know what I mean? Like, in order for there to be, like, awesome support for something like this, it would have to be on more than just one device. God, I mean,
is there any existing 3D content, movies and things that they could simulate? It does feel like the 4 cameras of the 4 corners. First of all, I always wanted angle shots, particularly from underneath of my face. I mean, while I'm using my phone, that's always extremely attractive. But it does sort of feel like killing a fly with a sledgehammer. Like, what are they going to do? They've got to have content to justify this. And on a phone, especially, it feels like, I don't know, maybe if this were a tablet or a TV device, it would feel maybe more worth it. I don't know. I can't imagine what they're doing with this.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems to me that if this is something that ever sees the light of day, it's more intended, at least to start, with the Fire OS, right? The OS that's running underneath to make the interaction with the OS more engaging in some way. But that just seems like overkill. It seems like overkill. Like, that would be like, how do you explain that to somebody who isn't right there in front of it, and Amazon is an online seller? How do you explain that, like, this is why you need to get this? Because when you're managing your home screens, it's really cool because it tracks you with 4 cameras. It just seems like, yes, it's total overkill.
Unless you can, like, walk down some sort of virtual, aisle in an Amazon store and sort of use your hands to turn products around and phone buy right there. I don't know.
Your phone is the brick and mortar store, right?
It is the brick and mortar store, exactly.
I love it. The cheap phone. Sorry.
I was going to say, this kind of reminds me of like with the developer challenge. Kind of reminds me of, like, do you remember, like, say, the Kyocera Echo and phones like that, where it's like you've got this really cool swanky feature, like in the Echo's case, it was like dual screens. But the problem is that because everybody has to put their effort into developing for this one phone, and it's only from one phone from one manufacturer. Like nobody ends up writing for it. So sure enough, like the feature mysteriously disappears next year, and, like, everybody's forgotten about it after a year. So they'll have to do a really good job of, I mean, like you said, either demonstrating why people would want this, or I don't even know, like, if they could actually convince people that they really want that. But it is a rumor, so who knows?
I haven't forgotten about the Sony Tablet P. I remember how awful of an experience that was. I'll never forget. It's burned into my brain. And it was the same kind of thing too, right? Like, it was a clamshell that opened up 2 landscape screens with a nice big fat line in the middle where the crease of the screens go. Yeah, it was awful. And I mean, it suffered from the same thing that you're talking about. It's kind of like, okay, it's different, it's new, but Is it usable? Because it's the only device that is like this, is there going to be any sort of support for the dual screen aspect and make it not suck? Because it's, it's like taking things that are meant for one screen and splitting it into two, and it just nothing seems to work tailored for the device. Then it's like, why would I need it? And I don't know, maybe all of Amazon's devices end up getting the 5-screen or the 5-camera treatment. And, in which case anybody who is considering not necessarily Android, but considering Amazon products, then, all of those devices fall into it. But I mean, who knows? Sounds like a gimmicky like trial thing that we may never actually see. I'd be kind of surprised if we did.
Yeah, they also mentioned that it's not coming until like sometime next year, right? And knowing Amazon, that probably means like September or so. So if at all, that's a long ways off. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those things that's like they decide, maybe we don't really need this feature, so they axe it and they just say like, well, let's just do a really fast phone or something.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this speaks to the challenge right now in this space, which is that it's hard to innovate, and some companies are choosing to innovate on software, or innovate in air quotes on software, and others are doing hardware. And I do not fault them for trying either, because I love seeing the new things. It's a challenge when there's such a set way of how things are in the mobile space right now, to work around that and kind of start a new direction. I give them total props for doing that. It's going to be really hard for something like that to become mainstream, I would guess. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, how about the Fire Tube? But beyond the terrible name, I mean, the idea that like I could stream my Amazon content.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the options for streaming Amazon on your TV right now are kind of limited and kind of clunky, right? I mean, Google TV, you have to use the web interface. It's not. You have to basically. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you basically have to, load up your Amazon streaming thing and connect your computer to a TV, right? There isn't really an app or a way to do an AirPlay kind of situation or anything like that right now.
Oh,
right?
They just added on the HDX. They actually added that second screen thing where you can fling your content to a TV, but even then, it's not quite like, say, sort of AirPlay style sophistication or. Actually, maybe Miracast, things like that. So, but they don't really. They kind of need something like this where it's just kind of easy. Like, okay, Amazon Instant Video, bang, done. So,
right.
Yeah, and it feels like that the way that they did things with the Kindle is that they had the hardware device and you can read your Kindle books on that device, but they also made software where you can read your Kindle books anywhere. I want to see the same thing for streaming. I should be able to watch streaming. From any device and be able to fling from any device. So I would love to see FireTube, Amazon's Chromecast, come out, but also there be a little flinger that I can install on anything. I mean, of course, I would love to see it just work with Chromecast, and it probably does just in the browser tab, right? But to have that sort of native app experience, and being able to even like just navigating your streaming stuff, even on the web is a little clunky. So it seems like this has been a long time in coming. If Amazon wants to, continue being kind of in the streaming game at this point, because between Netflix and Hulu, and even to some extent Google Play, those options are all just very attractive right now and really easy and have beautiful interfaces.
Yeah, Play just got a bunch of HBO content, by the way. Didn't make it into the show.
I know, I saw that. I was pretty happy about that. Game of Thrones, baby.
Yeah.
You can pay for it now.
Exactly. Needs HBO Go. That's what Android really needs. That's what I saw a lot of people saying when they saw that story. But anyways, hopefully someday. So it seems like a lot of hardware, the hardware section this week is all about kind of trends and everything. And other what will they think of next news. LG and Samsung are in hot pursuit of curved screen glory. LG announced that it will announce a phone with curved screen in November. It's called the G Flex. Does seem to me, so I have the Nexus S right here. If you remember, this has a curving screen. I don't know if you have the over-shoulder shot and if it's even noticeable. It was a super, I'm trying to look around. You can hardly tell from this camera. But actually, the Galaxy Nexus also has this like gently curved screen. I'm trying to figure out very slight. I'm trying to figure out what the difference is really between this and LG. Is it just that LG is doing that too? Because I mean, you look at these pictures and it's kind of the same deal.
Well, there's a couple of things. I think like the key is that, I mean, like what they were doing with say the Nexus S, Galaxy Nexus, and so on, is just like they're using like more conventional techniques and just sort of slightly sloping the glass.
The glass itself and not the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, whereas this is actual, like, actual flexible display technology. So in theory, it's they can both curve it more sharply, and it should be a little tougher and more resilient. So like you don't have to worry about things happening to it. So it's more like almost like a proof of concept thing. Like, see how far we can curve a screen. So
Well, Samsung is getting back in the game as well. EV-Leaks, who consistently provides interesting leaks, leaked out a picture of the supposed Samsung Galaxy Round, this time curving along the vertical axis. We could hear more from Samsung about this phone as soon as this week at some point, according to a press report out of Asia. But there we have a picture of the vertical curvature of the phone, which is kind of interesting, especially because I doubt the button curves. Maybe it does.
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've been trying to figure out here. It's like it'll be more comfortable in your hand, just because like the back of the phone will be curved as well, presumably. But like maybe it's just like a more natural perspective or something. But it like I said earlier, it almost seems like a proof of concept more than anything, just to show like, hey, like, see, we can do curved displays after all. So
yeah.
Does that look like a USB 3 connector at the bottom instead of just the normal? Because see how it chamfers off that edge, but not this edge?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that does. I mean, that would make sense because they have a USB 3 connector on the Galaxy Note 3, so why not keep that going with feature phones?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a good eye. I didn't notice that. Maybe the curve, maybe it's a better pocket feel, as they say, right? Because it curves around your leg when it's in your pocket. I don't know. Yeah, that's stretching it. I have no idea.
Is it like more screen real estate that's easily reachable? Like, can your finger reach across the screen and reach a place that it wouldn't without the curve? I don't know.
Maybe a little bit.
It looks funny, I'm trying to not react just to like this. This just looks weird because I'm just not used to seeing phones like that. But yeah, I don't know. It seems a little crazy.
And
it seems gimmicky.
If you were in landscape playing a game, would that be kind of weird? Like curving up.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good point. That like it might not. This might actually be worse for certain kinds of apps, simply because like a lot of them are based on the assumption that you can just sort of smoothly glide your thumb or what have you across in one line. If you have to worry about curvature, then that literally throws a curveball. So.
Oh, I see what you did there.
But it's sort of like one of those like ergonomic keyboards, like the curvy keyboards that are, a lot of people find really weird, right? But like I've gotten used to, maybe it would actually be an advantage in a game, right? Because your finger can go up faster, up or down on a vertical curve. I don't know.
Oh, and
it's one of the things. Yeah, we'd really have to try it for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Trot in the chat room points out Sarah Lane this morning on TNT, and I missed this, mentioned the drop aspect of it. If it's curved inward like that, maybe it drops and the screen doesn't necessarily hit the ground because it's steeply curved on the inside. That's one good possibility.
If you slid it across gravel, only the edges would get
destroyed. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess another trend that's been going on for a while. The Wall Street Journal reporting that HTC is going to ship the HTC One Max with a fingerprint scanner. Supposedly coming October 15th, and in fact, this has been confirmed. Tech journalists, I guess, The Verge said that they received an invitation to an HTC event confirmed, which is actually going to be in Hong Kong and Taipei on the 16th, which is October 15th, U.S. time. Of course, no confirmations on the Max itself, but got a lot of rumors and speculation, lots of information here. The fingerprint scanner will apparently be between the Max's SIM card and the smartphone's camera on the back of the phone, because there are a couple leaked pictures. This means that it will make it accessible to fingers resting on the back of the device instead of the front. No indication of what the fingerprint scanner will do, if it's going to be to buy apps or unlock the phone or both. A couple other bits of specs that are floating around out there, rumor, speculation: 1080p display, even larger than that of the 5.7-inch Galaxy Note. Various sources described 3,300 mAh battery and either 2.3 gigahertz Snapdragon or 800 or 1.7 gigahertz 600 processor that's used in the HTC One. And while the HTC One has a solid aluminum housing, the One Max is rumored to have the cheaper aluminum and plastic design like the One Mini. So I don't know why they would have chosen to do that on what sounds like it's going to be a pretty high-end phone. But so that's supposedly happening next week. And prepare yourself for everyone to say that HTC has been ripping off Apple, of course.
Of course.
And in a kind of a related story, Android phones with FIDO-based fingerprint readers are supposedly could be ready to arrive in early 2014. So FIDO, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. Jason, does that sound? Is it Fido like the dog?
That's how I would have said it. Yeah.
Yep. This is the Fast Identity Online Alliance. This is an organization founded by Lenovo and PayPal, and this is a group that's basically just trying to get rid of passwords. They're trying to create a future where an open standard will lead to interoperable two-step security, so you can log into sites and cloud apps across the web and replace them with your fingerprints. So Engadget reporting that the president of the group of FIDO tells USA Today that Android smartphones with FIDO-based fingerprint readers should be available in about 6 months in 2014. So they're not saying which companies are launching those devices. Makes sense that Lenovo would because they're involved with the alliance, and maybe LG. And Apple's Touch ID could work with FIDO, but I guess that really depends on how well or whether or not Apple decides to play with third-party developers. So fingerprint scanners are the future.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, pretty close future, sounds like.
Yeah, it does. It kind of sounds like the next trend that we've only just kind of begun to see. I wonder how much it's going to spread out. I guess we'll find out next year. But everybody that's used Touch ID on the iPhone, well, not everybody, but a lot of people that I've talked to that have used it say it works pretty darn well. It's a pretty neat feature. So
yeah, and it's just part of the experience. It's not a big change, or it's just a nice convenient thing. I haven't had a chance to try it yet. I would love to try it.
That would be my fear is, if fingerprints, kind of the fingerprint scanning to unlock your phone, for example, becomes a trend, but still gets kind of in that muddy area of, it works, but it adds an extra second or two to every time you want to open your phone and blah, blah, blah. It isn't really like that with the iPhone, from what I understand. But I would hope that it wouldn't be that way on Android as well. So we'll see. And finally, real quick, just because it's total rumor land, but we have to check in on the next Nexus phone, right? Because we keep hearing all about it. The service manual for the next device, supposedly, anyways, hit the internet. The manual shed some light on the specs, and Android Police was actually asked to remove the photos. I think other publications were as well, and the direct link to the manual by LG. So take from that what you will. If you had any doubt up until now that this might be legit, there you go. Oh yeah. And we are actually hearing that there might be 16 gigabyte and 32 gigabyte variants to the device. So that would be nice to have that extra capability. There's an LTE radio, but likely not one that supports Verizon. And then I was also reading something today about multiple capacity battery options dependent upon what the capacity of your storage is. So if you got a 16 gig version, it might have a 2300 milliamp hour battery, and this 32 gig version might have a 3000 milliamp hour battery. That kind of sounds weird to me. Weird that they would base the battery around the storage, but maybe they see it as a true upgrade if that's the case. I don't know. I'll believe that when I see it. I don't know. What do you think, John? I know. When we booked you onto the show, you were anticipating now would be around the time that we'd know everything we need to know. What do you think about the next Nexus as far as what we know now?
Yeah, I was kind of bummed that I wasn't going to come onto the show and say, "Oh, hey, guess what? They announced the new Nexus."
Right.
But well, I'm definitely intrigued by the specs. I mean, I don't entirely buy the idea of battery capacity changing depending on your storage capacity, because usually higher capacity batteries are actually physically bigger. So
yes, exactly.
You would almost have to redesign the innards of the phone to make that work. But I mean, for everything else here, it sounds like it's potentially a really hot device. I mean, you've got a 5-inch screen, which is kind of par for the course now, but you've also got a Snapdragon 800 and LTE and image stabilized camera. Like, and if Google comes in at the kind of pricing that everybody kind of hopes that they do, like typical Nexus pricing, this could be like a seriously hot phone, like even compared to say the Nexus 4, which was tremendous bang for the buck. So.
Yeah, and I mean there are reports if you buy them that say that the 16 gig would start at $299, the 32 gig would be $399, and that would be all in. Which would kind of follow in that pricing. Although this year with the Nexus 7, they ended up pricing it more than they did last year. Make a little bit of extra money, maybe pay for some of the more the higher cost components that may have been in there as far as the difference was concerned. So maybe we would see more than this, but I don't know. Still firmly in the rumor land. There you go. But yeah, I mean when this happens, I'm highly doubting that I'm going to see it on Verizon. Verizon is the carrier that I'm on. I'm probably going to have to jump ship. I think I've decided I'm going to jump from Verizon.
Like, I mean, the FCC filings showed basically you look at the LTE bands and it's like, okay, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, and no Verizon. So you get the impression that Google might have felt a bit burned by the Galaxy Nexus experience. So no Nexus for you. Come back next year. Yeah, rightfully so. Kind of sucked. So there we have it. Oh, and there are some photos, supposed photos of early builds of KitKat floating around. We don't need to really talk about it. It's just kind of along the lines of what we've shown on the show before. The kind of all white notification and a few other places. The dialer looks a little bit different, but anyways.
Not a lot there, really.
Yeah, there really isn't. I mean, there's a lot of photos, but it doesn't really tell you a whole lot, and it's very white on a black
white
background.
on black. It's
Yeah.
Like, there are Android settings areas.
There we go. Okay. So, anyways, we will eagerly await more news there. Real quick on the Glass front, seems like Glass is becoming a weekly update here, but hey, that's just because new Glass stuff keeps happening. So there we go. First, a new update to Glass, bringing transit directions for city folk. Hyperlink supported notifications, which is kind of strange. Is another one of those, I'm surprised that wasn't there in the first place, updates. And avatars. Was that?
Hyperlinks. I love that word.
I know, right? Hyperlinks.
Yeah.
Next update, we'll have blink tags.
Yes. Sorry, continue.
And avatars that appear when you're messaging or commenting from Glass for the person that you're contacting. Pretty minor stuff. And if you have been developing glassware and you want it included in My Glass, the review process is now open to everyone who is in on Glass. So new glassware has also actually been added by Sports Yapper, Fancy, Mashable, Kitsch Me, and Thuzz, one of which I've ever heard of. But there you go. I've only ever heard of Mashable out of that list. What can I say? Maybe I'm missing something. And finally, just real quick here, we have an email from Josh. We talked last week about the Glass Roadshow. Josh says, I was one of several that went to the Google Glass in Durham on Saturday. It was an awesome experience, even though the line was long. It moved quickly. There were 4 to 5 people at check-in. They were all using Chrome Pixels. I saw that too when I went. I was then moved to another line to wait in my turn. That only lasted about 2 minutes. I was then in a group of about 7 people. 2 Googlers from New York were explaining how the device worked. And Chad, actually, there's a link for some photos from the event if people want to see that. One Googler was wearing the device. The other was holding an Nexus 10 so we could see what the Glass was doing. Then came my turn to try on the bad boys. The whole time I was walking up to them to put them on, I kept replaying the moment when Ron put them on for the first time. It was great. They were so light, and I first put them on. I didn't even see the display. I actually had to look up to see it. I was able to get them to take a picture, give me directions. It was pretty noisy in there, so it had a hard time hearing me. I didn't get to spend too much time with them, but I loved it. Anyone who has a chance to try them on should. Here are some pics. Feel free to share if you want. Just thought it was a nice kind of firsthand experience of what it would be like to go to the traveling roadshow and try on a pair of Glass for the first time after having heard everything that we've heard about them for the past year and a half now. So there we go. I'm stoked you got to try them on, Josh. Have you encountered any of these updates on your Glass or? put them on
my
since the
glasses-
updates?
Yeah, my glass has been binging behind me. I really need to kind of dig in and try them out. And actually, I want to take another try at glassware development because I think it's cool that it sounds like that the store is going to open. But I have to say, like I've been having a hard time sort of, and we've talked about this before, of like integrating glass in my everyday life.
Yeah.
Throwing them on before I leave the house every day it's just not top of mind. Not the way that grabbing my phone is. So I need to get back into weekend glassing and check out the new updates.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of right there with you. I'm a glass slacker these days. And you, John, any experience with glass or any excitement around it?
I've had a precious little amount of experience with glass, and that was like it's definitely one of those things. Like it feels like, I mean, like Gina can attest to this. It feels like you're living in the future, at least while you've got it on, because you can you're doing all these things that are just like from this little display at the corner of your eye. So it's particularly cool, and I wish they had those transit directions earlier, because I mean that seems like the perfect fit for this, like being able to say, oh, I need to take this subway or this bus stop. So
yeah, absolutely. And a lot of city folk wearing glass. At least if you go to San Francisco, you probably have more chance in San Francisco of running into someone wearing glass than most other places. It's very concentrated around here, so the likelihood is high. So there you go. All right, let's jump into a quick apps section.
Google Hangouts for Android is supposedly, hopefully, fingers crossed, poised to get SMS and MMS support soon. This is really news. I mean, Google kind of said that their Hangouts is going to be this unified messaging platform. Google had so many messaging apps. There was messaging apps. There was Messenger and Talk and Voice and Messaging. The native Android messaging app. And now we've got Hangouts, but still SMS and MMS aren't supported. And I think that's really the difference between Hangouts and something like iMessage. Well, Android Police published a screenshot of Hangouts settings area that has a very interesting setting that says turn on SMS, send and receive SMS with Hangouts, and a little checkbox. Not sure where the screenshot showed up. It looks like this is, maybe a future build or somebody. Oh, and there's actually also a screenshot of SMS messages that show up in Hangouts. So hopefully we're going to see this actually happen soon. I would love to see Google Voice and Hangouts just merge and become the same thing, particularly because I use Google Voice. And if Hangouts can handle voicemail and MMS and SMS, I'd be really, really happy. I hope that's going to happen soon. Apparently, these screenshots seem to indicate that it will. Google's been kind of mum about this so far, but maybe in the next few releases, I'd love to see this in the next couple months. Yep. Yeah, Android Police did a great breakdown of, okay, here are all the icons, all the apps that we had for messaging.
Man, what a mess.
And then we went down to these three. Now we're down to these two.
Hopefully so, man. Mm-hmm. I really hope that's a part of the KitKat, announcement, whenever that may be. If ever that may be. Yeah. But yeah, I want this. I want this bad. I want SMS and MMS in Hangouts. Although MMS probably wouldn't matter too much to me because I'm on Google Voice. So unless they also have some great thing to share there, then I guess I want this kind of bad. But still, I'll take what I can get as far as Hangouts are concerned right now. And finally, just real quick here. Last week we had Shannon Morris on, and she was kind of talking about how she got the Chromecast and she hasn't been too taken by it. Like she wanted to cast just a tab with Hulu up onto her TV set from her Chrome browser. Hulu Plus wasn't necessarily what she wanted to get up there. She tries Hulu and it was low frame rate and wasn't that great. Well, this isn't an answer to her prayers necessarily, but we do have one more app that's working with Chromecast. Last week, Hulu announced Hulu Plus with support for Chromecast. So that's something. If you're a Hulu Plus subscriber, you can now cast that up onto your Chromecast, onto your TV set in your living room, wherever it happens to be. So I know that makes some people happy anyways. I'm not a Hulu Plus user, so.
Yeah, me neither.
That app does me nothing. There we go. All right. Let's take an email. Gina?
Yeah, we've got an email. Hi guys, I was wondering what was the best way to send your location to a boss or coworker. This would come in handy when my commuter train had a detour to a stop I don't normally use, and I wanted to call to have a work shuttle pick me up. I didn't know the physical location of the train station. Thanks, and keep up the great shows from OC, Alexander, and Los Angeles, right up the road from me here in San Diego. So OC, here's the two different ways you can share your location from your Android phone. First, in just Google Maps, and this is a trick that I just learned because Jason just learned it. If you tap your location and drop a pin on it, you can long tap, and then you can tap on the pin and a share menu will come up. It'll show you, what is the address or location where you are, and then there's a share button, and that will launch Android share menu, and you can send a link to your location and maps via any of the apps installed on your phone using Android's standard share menu. It's just in Google Maps. Another option, great app, Glimpse with a Y, Glympse. That's been in the Android arena. App built for this, built for sharing your location, your current location with someone. And I believe it's free, so you can install that and easily share your location as well next time that your commuter train gets stuck somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean, Glimpse is a little different. It's maybe through Glimpse. I've only ever used it to say, you can track my location for the next 30 minutes, and then they log into a URL or whatever on the web and can see where I'm at for just that broadcast time. I'm sure there's a way with Glimpse to just say, this is where I'm at right now, to send like a momentary, like, this is me right now, boom, go there,
right,
as opposed to that other part of the service. But yeah, I didn't know about the Maps thing. Yeah. What's up, John?
Okay, I was gonna say there's one extra app that might be able to do it. There's also Dragon Mobile Assistant. Like when back in March, they actually added location sharing to their app, so you can actually say, hey, here's where I am right now if you need to find me. So yeah, obviously Maps is probably the most straightforward answer because you're gonna have Maps on your phone no matter what. But it's another option.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things that like a long press is how I got there anyways. Maybe there's another way to get there, but long pressing on the pin on the map will pull up kind of a little information thing, and then tapping that will show you the share. So I had never seen that before. So maybe you haven't either. Then that's how you can get to it. So there you go, OC Alexander. Hope that helps. All right, let's battle.
So many enter, but only one lives. Android Arena.
Boom. Let's see here. Last week, we had 3 apps. It was episode 129. Text Secure, Smash the Office, and Frozen LED. And I haven't even looked at the results here. Frozen LED. Wow, it was a pretty close race for the most part.
Very close.
Frozen LED came in first at 42%. Ron should be very happy about that because he was he was wondering why he hasn't won in so long. So there you go, Ron. You can't even celebrate. You're not even on the show to celebrate. Text Secure and Smash the Office tied percentage-wise, but it looks like Text Secure eked out a victory with 2 more votes, 29% for both of those. So that looks like I am the loser this week. So I will go first. So my app this week, I've been doing a lot of just kind of forums reading and stuff. And a long time ago, I bought Tapatalk and bought it. I purchased it because I think it was like $4.99 and it was on sale for half off or something. I was like, okay, I'll get that, and I'm sure eventually I'll use it. Well, probably about a month ago, I started using it pretty regularly to check out a few forums, and it turns out that a couple of days ago, they took the Tapatalk phone version and removed the price from it entirely. So now it's free. So you can check it out for yourself. Let me get to it here, and I'll show it to you. It's essentially, it's a way to browse a lot of your favorite forums online. So I happen to like the Avid Pro audio forum. You can kind of scan through and see all the different topics and everything. Obviously, over here we have the eyeballs, how many people have viewed it, when the last update was done, how many comments are in there. And you can go in, and if you've linked up your account with Tapatalk, you can go in there and actually post as a user on all these forums through here as well. I just end up lurking a lot because I want to know, about different updates for things. So I don't really post a whole lot in these forums. So I won't show that off because I haven't signed up, so you can see the join thing is still there. But you can, and it's pretty awesome there. Good search tools for obviously searching through the forums. So that's pretty straightforward there. Let's go into Android Central here and show that off. What you should do is actually, let's see here. Let me go back. Sorry, I'm getting lost for a second here. We'll go into the search here. If you go into the overall search, they have a lot of different ways that you can kind of break out by category all the different forums and stuff that they track through the app itself. We'll go into technology and computing, and you just kind of scan through and find the forums for all the different places. There's Roots Wiki, which I follow a lot. It just has a ton of forums that are supported in here. I do know that some forums aren't in here because it was a paid app before. So I'm curious to see if those forums are then added, because I know there's one that's has a strange name. It's called Gear Sluts, but it's basically all about audio gear. And they withheld from this app specifically because the app Tapatalk was a paid-for app. Now that it's free, I'm hoping that even more forums are going to pop up here. But I mean, the list just goes on and on. You can see I'm scrolling through, and this is just the technology section, and it keeps loading and updating and everything. So you can just kind of go in and, I don't know, Team US Cellular, sure. I'll go in there, and it'll kind of connect, and you can actually add that to your list. So yeah, it's just kind of a straightforward forums browser, but it's well designed and kind of has a lot of kind of the hollow color. It's not fully hollow throughout as far as the navigation is concerned, but still pretty. Oh, now Team US Cellular is added to my list. I'll go ahead and remove that. I probably would never read that. But there you go. It's Tapatalk. It's now free. It was $4.99, so instant bargain. So check it out if you are looking to browse through forums. I think there's a tablet version, Tapatalk HD, and that is still paid for. So this is specifically the phone version that I pulled up. And I'm not sure the difference between this and Pro, to be honest. Or does Chad know?
Yeah, Pro looks to be the...
I think they folded Pro into this.
Well, this looks like the tablet version.
Is it the tablet version?
I mean, just based off of images only and speculation. That looks like a tablet screen.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
All right, Tapatalk for forums browsing. All right, so John, I have your app installed and a widget. So I'll just go ahead and start talking about it, and I will follow your lead if I can get my phone to work.
All right. Well, I'm a bit of a stickler for weather apps because I want them to look good and to tell me enough of the information that I need to get through the day. Like, am I going to get soaked later on by rain, or is it going to get too cold or too hot during the day? So I've found a few weather apps, but one of the apps that I'm actually kind of digging lately is Yahoo Weather. Like, it's been around. They recently did an overhaul for it not too long ago for Android, and it's actually beautiful and rather convenient. So if you actually launch into the app itself, one of the things they take advantage of, like this being Yahoo, is that you've got like Flickr photos in the background. So if it'll pick something that's appropriate to the time of day and so on. So you'll get at this time of the night, you'll more likely to get like sunsets or nighttime shots. This also applies to the widget I'd add, although we don't have to go there yet. But you get appropriate things. But the real party trick when you're in the app itself is when you scroll down. Actually, you might need to be in the landscape mode, portrait mode for this to really see it.
I'm not sure it's going to let me do that because of the MHL. I can unplug and do the over the shoulder though to show that off.
Okay. But if you scroll down, you'll see you'll notice it it has this really beautiful presentation for additional information. So if you scroll down a bit, you see say the daily forecasts. You'll see whether you have to worry about rain later on in the week. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see even more details there's humidity and various conditions like that. Scroll down again, and then you see the radar map, so you'll know if you're about to be hit by a wave of clouds. And then they even have even more esoteric things like wind, pressure, precipitation, and even the moon phases and so on. like that's kind of awesome. If you're the kind of person who wants to know exactly what you're going to look like, what you're going to see when you stare out the window, like that's great. So, but also the app itself is just kind of the start, because they also have a fairly good widget implementation too. So I don't know if we can.
Yeah, we'll go back to this here.
Bring that up.
Plug that
like I
in.
mentioned.
It'll flop here in a second. There we go.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, thankfully I know it does work in landscape and horizontal. But basically, I mean, obviously they can put in that flicker photo, like I mentioned. You can also get it transparent if you want. If you're like a big fan of minimalism, you can create the widget without that. You can also choose from like several different kinds of widgets. So you can choose like just the basic one, which like I just want my temperature. Or you can say I want the forecast for the hourly forecast in my widgets. Like I want a narrow one. I want a big widget. So like you get this this amazing amount of customization. Oh yeah, and actually one of the things I like is that they even have a really tiny widget. So if you just need, like, I just want the weather in a little corner, but I want like most of my screen to be available for like apps, for example, that you can set that too. So it's this surprisingly customizable and good-looking app. So in a sense, it's like it might not be perfect, because I'm sure there's some people who would say like I want to have more customization over the look, but it does quite a bit by itself. So I'm pretty happy with it. And hey, it's free; it doesn't hurt.
Awesome. Yeah, it's very slick, and man, so much information on here as well. Let's see here. I'm trying to pull up some of the other widgets.
I love the
here.
Flickr integration.
Yeah, that's awesome. Pulling in the picture of your location and everything, it pulls up that. I've seen that corner a million times in Petaluma. That's pretty cool. It's cool stuff. I've heard a lot, actually, over the last few weeks about how great the Yahoo Weather app was, and I just had never checked it out because I don't know. It's Yahoo. Like, I hear about a new Yahoo thing. I'm like, oh, yeah, Yahoo. I remember when my email was with the Yahoo.
Well, we're in the Marissa Mayer era now.
Yeah, I know.
So she really seems to want everybody like sort of like, okay, fresh, new, interesting, like all their apps and so on are getting these nice big makeovers that like say like, okay, now I actually really want to use this. So, so it's definitely
great.
So worth another look.
Absolutely. So that is Yahoo Weather. Really nicely designed weather app and widget. So check that out. It is free. And I guess they also, announced 1 terabyte of free store, by the way, for their email, and kind of redesigned their email app as well. So yeah, they really are kind of changing things and hopefully redefining Yahoo for everybody. So there you go.
Love it.
Cool.
And then Gina, you have an app. I have it installed on the tablet. Go for it.
Yes. My app pick this week is called Find It. One word, Find It, and it's free. And I really like this app. I really like well-designed apps that do one thing well, and Find It is both of these things. What Find It does is it searches your Gmail accounts, Drive accounts, your Google Drive, and Dropbox accounts. So if you're like me, my business partner and I, we email, we use Google Drive, we have documents in Dropbox, and this app Find It will connect all those accounts and any number of those accounts, and we'll search across all of those places. So I've got Google Drive documents that say AAA, I've got email about AAA, and so I can say, show me everything, search for the word AAA across all of my accounts, and I can, as Jason's showing right there, you can narrow by times. You can say, show me the last 7 days, the last 30 days. You can do it by person. So I can say, just show me the documents and the email from Jason. You can do it by file types. You can say, just show me the spreadsheets that contain, these search terms. And it's really fast and it's really convenient. And I find that I have a couple of different Google accounts. So I'm always like, is it Drive in this account? Do I have to invite myself in here? You can connect multiple Google accounts, multiple Google Drive accounts, multiple Gmail accounts, and multiple Dropbox accounts as well, and search across all of them. So it's just a really handy way, one-point access to all your cloud stuff that's on Drive or Gmail or Dropbox. That's the only drawback, is that right now, this is a relatively new app. It only works with Drive, Gmail, and Dropbox. Evernote, Box, Exchange, and a bunch of other services, Yahoo Mail, Hotmail, Salesforce. Those are all coming. The developer is extremely responsive. You can see that he responds in the comments, and he was even responding in the Lifehacker post about this, saying, "Hey, you know what? We're adding all these other services. For right now, we just started with these three, and so I look forward to when the other services are added. So if you're a heavy user of those other services, and I actually really like Evernote, and I'm kind of dying for Evernote to show up and find it, you'll be really happy when it does as well. But again, just really well designed, super easy. Just search across all your cloud accounts in one really nice interface, and you can even see stats on your app. So like if I do a search for AAA, for example, I can see that in 2013 I've got a ton more files and emails that have the term AAA in them because I started doing this show this year than any other year, and so that's really cool to even see those kinds of stats. So when you sign up for the app, it's free. You create a Find It account, and then you connect to your different accounts that you want to search, and it takes a few minutes depending on how much email and how many documents you have for Find It to index those things. But once it does, the search is relatively fast. You'll sometimes see a loading spinner, but for the most part, it's relatively fast and really nicely designed. It works great on phone, works great on tablet, and yeah, that's it. Find it.
Find it. Get to finding it.
Find it.
All right, that's one word. Find it. All one word. Yep. Awesome stuff. I really just a minor thing that I liked when I was setting it up that you had to drag the icon over. When you're setting it up, you had to grab like the Google icon over to the shadowed Google icon and swipe to set up. It's like activate. It was kind of satisfying.
And you're in this sunny wheat field and everything's just so good. Like it's just like life is good as you're searching for your documents. So I like that feeling.
It's great when you can find it, isn't it?
It's great when you can find your kittens running through the grass, finding it.
Exactly. All right, so you can vote for your favorite app this week. Is it Tapatalk, Yahoo Mail? Yahoo Weather, not Yahoo Mail. Yahoo Weather, or Find It. Vote. Make your voice heard, or you can't complain. If you don't vote, you can't complain. AAApoll.com/130, AAApoll.com/130, and let us know what you think. Early reports are in. Find It coming out with a commanding lead. Oh, Yahoo Weather closing the gap. I have a good feeling Tapatalk is going to get left in the dust. So that's what it's looking like here. Find It and Yahoo Weather. They're formidable opponents.
The first 5 minutes, you never know.
Man, this is
it's unpredictable, but I'm
it really is.
Yahoo Weather.
it's like a horse race. Come on.
Maybe we should have have some sort of like a wager on this during the show, like watching them battle back and forth. It's almost like going to the horse races. It's exciting stuff, let me tell you. Watching that pie graph change shapes all the time. Exciting.
That's good stuff. That's just good TV right there.
Yeah, totally. Now, maybe not good audio, but still, there you go. More reason to watch. That is it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. I know that we've enjoyed having you back on the show, John. It's been really great just having you along. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yep. Glad to be back. It's been fun, actually.
Absolutely. So this is kind of your opportunity to tell people what you're up to, where people can find your work, all that stuff.
Okay. Well, pretty straightforward. I mean, I'm a horrendously prolific writer on Engadget.
Yeah, you are.
So basically, I'm there in news stories. Like I just recently reviewed a Firefox OS phone, the ZTE Open. So that was kind of cool. So basically check there, and you can find me on Twitter at John Fingus. So I'm all over the internet usually.
You are a man of the internet, and yes, I noticed you are writing so much stuff for Engadget right now. I'm not sure how you turn around that much content in any given day, but it's really impressive.
Well, thanks. Lots of English studies, I guess, just like learning to write a whole lot really quickly. Yeah,
awesome. Well, keep up the great work. We'll have you back, obviously, once again. Really appreciate it. And Gina, what you got going on these days?
You can see everything that I'm up to at ginatrapani.org. When I'm not here on the show, I'm making a call to do text for Android. You can check that out at todotxt.com. And I also co-host This Week in Google here on the Twit Network, which airs on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific. I'm very excited because Leo is going to be back from vacation tomorrow. Hopefully, I think, supposedly. I'm excited to see him. It's going to be a really good show. The band's going to be back together, so you all should come join us at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And, come watch and chat.
Chad appears to be pretty excited that Leo's back too.
Yeah, I was over here shaking my head that yes, Leo will be back.
Okay.
Order will be restored
yes.
to the universe.
Not that it was bad without him, but he will be back.
I will say one thing. Today was his first day back. Everything was on time. It was weird. It was like Leo here and shows were getting done early. So I don't know. This vacation could have changed him a little bit.
You gotta really mellowed him out.
I'm just saying, yeah. Kind of crazy stuff. Chad, I know you're going to be there for Twig, right?
I will. I'm the producer for Twig. I do a few things on the network. I video switch this show, All About Android. I produce Twig, Twit, and Mac Break Weekly. I do my own shows this week in YouTube and OMG Craft. And then I also do some personal stuff on my own YouTube channel, youtube.com/OMGChad. If you've ever wondered why I have this crazy red hair,
I have.
4 days ago, I uploaded a video just for you, Jason.
Oh,
it says, "What is up with my crazy red hair?" So go head on over to youtube.com/OMGChad if you want to check that out. Jason, what have you been up to? Where can people find you?
Oh, well, thank you so much for throwing it back to me. You can find me at about.me/Jason Howell. My musical exploits and stuff are Yellow Gold Music. The CDs are being replicated as we speak. So in 2 weeks, I'm told they will be done. And
do they still press CDs? Do they ever press CDs, or do they just burn them a whole bunch of times really fast?
It's something I've learned. There's a difference between CD duplication and replication. What? Duplication is like burning. Replication is like actually, pressing.
Whoa.
So in the way that, when you pick up a CD at the store, it's got the silver kind of color to it versus the blue or whatever. So, and I went with the replication because I wanted it to look good. Oh, yeah. I didn't want it to deteriorate in 5 years.
Cool.
So that's happening right now. In a couple of weeks, I will probably have a stack of like 300 of those, and I'm going to be like, oh my God, what do? I have to ship these all out. But anyways, so if you were in on the Kickstarter, coming soon still. Sorry that's been so long, but there you go. That is it for this week. Excellent show. So happy you joined us. Chat room, as always, you guys are fantastic, and we love having you guys on board. You keep us honest. And you can participate, chat room or not, by leaving us a voicemail, 347-SHOW-AAA. You can send us an email, video mail at aaa@twit.tv. You can find us on Twitter. We are at Android Show. The Reddit, twitaaa.reddit.com. Show notes and past episodes can be found at twit.tv/AAA. You can also find our shows on YouTube and iTunes all over the place. And you can catch us live every Tuesday. Starting at 5 p.m. Pacific at live.twit.tv. We'll be back next week. Ron will be back along with Gina and myself. And we'll see you then for another episode of All About Android. Come back, won't you?